Hello students, this is HB sir and this particular video lecture is exclusively for Neon offline classroom students. As we have already learned all these topics in detail during our classroom sessions, but this lecture is just for quick recall and revise these topics. So, we start from grade 10 chapter 5th life processes. The title is life processes. Process means yes, something is happening, something is going on, but the word life is directly relates with the living. So come on, let's differentiate between living and non-living. As we are going to differentiate between living and non-living, first comes into the mind is some type of visible movement. How? So, some examples are given like dog is running, cow chewing cud, and men shouting on street. In all these cases, dog running, men shouting, cow chewing, some sort of visible movement is there. By considering these things, the visible movement is there, we consider these organisms as alive. But now question is, what when they are at a sleep? Okay, if they are at a sleep, even though we see them breathing and we know that they are alive, so in sleeping conditions also, movement of breathing, and we know that even at the sleeping stage, heart is beating, stomach is churning the food, and movement of lungs is going on due to breathing. So again we consider them as a living being. But another question is, what about plants? So far plants, they do not show any quick distinct movement or visible movement like animals. So then, but if we consider the growth factor, so over a period of time, plants will grow in height, width, new branches arises, new leaves arises, flowering, fruiting. So from seed germination to small plant to huge tree, so we can see movement, observe movement if we consider the growth which takes place over the time. So far, by considering movement or visible movement, can we differentiate between living and non-living? But there is another some doubts, like plants, they do not show any visible movement, and some animals are also there which can breathe without visible movement, even though we consider them as alive. So the movement only or the visible movement only is not enough. The bottom line is, visible movement as a defining characteristic of life is not enough. Now, this is what all about first para. Now moving to the second para, which is about molecular movement. Again, another type of movement. We know that molecules, they are too small. We can't see them with our naked eyes. Okay. Molecular movements, they takes place at a very small scales and invisible to the naked eyes. But is it necessary for life? Is it necessary for our life? Then professional biologists say a big yes. Then why? Answering why, before answering why, there is a controversial case of virus is given in your textbook. Come on. Virus, they do not show any molecular movement within them until they infect some cells. So we have already discussed in detail about viruses. They can infect human beings, they can infect animals, they can infect plant, and a particular group of viruses is there which can infect bacteria. So for foundation and for NEET, we have marked out it. Such group of viruses which can infect bacteria are called phage or bacteriophage viruses. But here the controversy is, can we consider virus as truly alive or not? Why is it so? Because in free condition, virus can found anywhere, in air, in water, in soil, on the soil, in food also. In free conditions or in free environment, they behaves like a non-living particle, but as it infect any living cell, they acts as living organism. So can we consider truly alive or not is the controversy. But again, for foundation and for NEET, we have already marked out that virus, we consider them as a connecting link between non-living and living. So always do remember, the connecting link between non-living and living is virus. Okay, coming to the point again, is it molecular movement is necessary for life? Then biologists say yes. Then why molecular movements needed for life? So answer is, organisms are well organized structures. So in earlier classes we have studied that organism consists number of organ systems. Each organ system made up of organs, each organ made up of tissues, each tissue made up of cells. Single cell consists number of cell organelles, and ultimately they all are made up of molecules. And we all are made up of molecules. Then what happens now is, due to environmental impact, we know that environment never stays constant, it keep on changing constantly. So we have to adapt to the according to the environment or changing environment. And here we also consider, and we have discussed in detail about wear and tear theory of aging. What happens now? Due to environmental effects, our organized order structure keep on breaking down, and this continuous breaking down, if order breaks down, which order? Organ system made up of organs, sorry, they made up of tissues, made up of cells, organelles, and they consist molecules. If this order breaks down, the organism will no longer be alive, then no organism can survive. Then what will be the solution? The solution is, each and every organism must keep repairing and maintaining their structures. So we must keep repairing and maintaining our structures or the order of structures against constant breakdown and damage, to prevent those breakdowns and damage. All these structures are ultimately made up of molecules. All these structures, they are made up of molecules, and that's why only we must move molecules around all the time. So molecular movement, yes, to prevent constant breakdown and damage, for the purpose of repairing and maintaining, ultimately we can say for survival of each and every living organism. Molecular movement or movement of molecules around us all the time is must process. Let's explore these life processes. What are the life processes? Maintenance functions must go on when even you are doing nothing. You are sitting in a class, just you are at a sleep, even though your maintenance processing will go on, must go on, because your internal organs, tissue, cells, they are in functioning state. They continuously facing breakdown and damage. Even if you are doing nothing, you think that you are doing nothing, but your physiological processes are continuously going on. Even you are sitting in a class or just you are at her sleep. So we can define the life processes as the processes which together perform the maintenance job of living organisms are called life processes. The processes altogether perform the maintenance job to overcome damage and breakdown. For repairing purposes, these maintenance processes, they altogether perform maintenance job of living organisms are called life processes. So we can define it like this. And there are number of life processes, but as per your textbook, main 4 processes are described like nutrition, respiration, circulation and excretion. Let's see. These 4 life processes are given in your textbook: nutrition, respiration, transportation and excretion. Let's first we will look at the 4 processes in general way. What is nutrition? In simpler way, obtaining, but more importantly, obtaining and utilizing food as a source of energy. So our source of energy is food. How organism obtain its food and how it utilize within the body for energy purposes is called nutrition. What is respiration? The food comes into the body due to nutrition. Now within the cell of organism, this food breaks down and release energy for your functional unit cell, cellular needs. So break down food and release energy for cellular needs. The energy providing process is called respiration. Food providing process is nutrition. Now transportation. All food and oxygen material for respiration and via nutrition we got the food, and during breathing we absorb, we taken in the oxygen. Carrying this food and oxygen from one place to another within the body is called transportation. And last, excretion. Simple, removal of harmful waste byproducts out of the body is called excretion. All processes are called life processes. Each and every process is must for living organisms to sustain. Excretion, removal of harmful waste byproducts. They are poisonous one. They can harm, they can create harm to our regular life cycles. So just removal of such byproducts outside the body is called excretion. So we getting food for energy is from nutrition. We release or obtain energy at cellular level is respiration. We carrying food and oxygen from one part to another of body is transportation, and removal of harmful waste byproduct is called excretion. Now first looking at the nutrition process. Okay. Maintenance processes are needed to prevent damage and breakdown. As earlier we said, for maintenance processes which prevents breakdown and damages in our body. For that, energy is needed to perform any work W. Energy E is must. Even for performing life or maintenance processes, we require energy, and this energy comes from outside of the body into the body of an organism. So energy comes outside the body to inside the body of an organism. How? So there must be a process behind it for the transfer of energy from environment to the organism's body, and this process is called nutrition. Transformation of energy from environment to the organism, a process is called nutrition. Okay, next for the nutritions, we know that since life on earth depends on carbon based molecules, life on earth depends on carbon based molecules. So our food or source of energy, most of our food sources are also carbon based sources like carbohydrate, lipid, proteins, nucleic acid, etc. They all are carbon based food sources. And depending upon the complexity of these carbon based food sources, different types of organisms show or possesses different type of nutritional processes, different kinds of nutritional processes. Okay, plants, what they do? They take in inorganic sources like CO2 and H2O and convert them into simple organic molecule like glucose. Whereas what we do, we already taking organic, complex organic food material like carbohydrate, lipids, protein. So we taking in complex material, plant making simple food material. So depending upon the complexity of these carbon based sources, different kind of organism shows different kinds of nutritional processes. Why this nutritional process is required? So as per our textbook, we can answer in 4 points. First, to maintain a state of order in our body. So against damage and breakdown, maintain a state of order in our body means again organs, tissues, cells, organelles, molecules. Then we need some additional food material to grow, to develop, to synthesize protein and other substances needed within the body. So we can answer simple question why nutrition is required into simple 4 steps answer. To maintain a state of our body means to sustain, to be alive. Then to grow, to develop, synthesize protein and other substances which are needed in the body. And this source of energy and material is nothing but the food we eat. So all these carbon based food sources are present in our daily food materials. So such sources of energy and material is nothing but the food we eat. Okay. Next, the modes of nutrition. So mainly we can divide the modes of nutrition into 2. One is autotrophic mode of nutrition and other is heterotrophic mode of nutrition. Now if they will ask simply differentiate between autotrophic and heterotrophic mode of nutrition. Simply autotrophic These are the organisms which can prepare their own food. The organisms can prepare their own food are called autotrophic organism, whereas in case of heterotrophic, they depends directly or indirectly on autotrophs. Directly or indirectly, if they are herbivores, then they directly depend on autotrophs, and if they are carnivores, then indirectly depend on autotrophs. So simple can make their own food, depends directly or indirectly on autotrophs. Importantly, second point, as we said earlier, by using inorganic sources such as CO2 and H2O. Here they using inorganic sources, atmospheric CO2 and H2O, which is absorbed by roots from soil water, and make simple food material such as glucose, which is C6H12O6. So they using inorganic source CO2 and H2O and then convert them into simple food material. We all know the process is called photosynthesis. It is the process by which organisms or green plants can prepare their own food. So for animals, they do not possess chlorophyll. They have to depend on autotrophs for their food requirements. So CO2 and H2O, by using them, they prepare simple food materials such as glucose. But in case of heterotrophs, we utilizing complex substances. Carbohydrate, lipid, protein. Those are the complex organic food materials. That's why we have to break down. Them into simpler ones. But for that we have to take help of digestive enzymes. So here the point will become utilizing complex substances and broken down into simpler ones with the help of enzymes. And third one is simple. For autotrophic, you can give two examples like green plants and some bacteria. Which bacteria? They might be photosynthetic or chemosynthetic, but both can prepare their own food. So green plants and some bacteria, they not all bacteria, some bacteria they can consider as an autotrophic organism. And in heterotrophic, simple examples, fungi and animals. So far they do not possess chlorophyll within them. They can't prepare their own food. So two main modes of nutrition, we are considering them as autotrophic and heterotrophic. Let's first look at the autotrophic mode of nutrition. What happens in autotrophic mode of nutrition? The carbon and energy requirements of the autotrophic organism are fulfilled by all. We know that the process is called photosynthesis. The process is called photosynthesis. Come on, let's look into the process of photosynthesis. How we can define the photosynthesis? Simple, in three steps. First, in presence of sunlight and chlorophyll, these both conditions are must to perform photosynthesis. So in presence of sunlight and chlorophyll, materials is taken in form of CO2 and H2O. As we discussed earlier, these are inorganic sources, atmospheric CO2 and H2O from soil water. So material is taken in the form of CO2 and H2O. They are converted into glucose means simple carbohydrates. So definition of photosynthesis is in presence of sunlight and chlorophyll, materials is taken in the form of CO2 and H2O are converted into carbohydrates. The whole process is coined as photosynthesis. Okay. Now what happens at the end of photosynthesis? At the end of photosynthesis, a molecule of glucose is synthesized, glucose molecule is produced. Then those glucose molecules or carbohydrates are utilized for providing energy to plant. It's food. Plant's food is glucose. It is autotrophic one. It has made itself. So glucose synthesized, those carbohydrates utilized for providing energy to plant. But here the question is, what about the excess molecule of glucose which are not required right now? So during photosynthesis, some extra or excess molecules of glucose are also formed. For them, the carbohydrates which are not used, means excess glucose molecules, immediately are stored in the form of starch. Number of excess glucose molecules, they bind with each other with the help of glycosidic bond and make a polymer of glucose. This polymer of glucose is called starch. This starch is nothing but it serves very important as the internal energy reserve. So internal energy reserve of plant is nothing but starch. And so far it is internal energy reserve. So plant can be used by plants as and when it required, to be used as and when required by the plant. So simple process of photosynthesis. Come on, have a quick look at. In presence of sunlight and chlorophyll, materials is taken in the form of CO2 and H2 are converted into carbohydrates. The process is called photosynthesis. During the process of photosynthesis, glucose molecules or carbohydrates are formed which are utilized for providing energy to plant. But what about excess glucose molecules are formed? So such carbohydrates which are not in use or not utilized immediately are converted into starch. Starch is nothing but it serves as an internal energy reserve, and that's why to be used as and when required by the plant. Then what about our case? Simple. Similarly, Similarly, in us, where some of the energy derived from our food is stored in the form of, no, not starch, it is stored in form of glycogen. In general, glycogen is also known as animal starch. Again, glycogen is nothing but again a polymer of glucose. The extra or excess glucose present in our body, it is stored in form of insoluble glycogen, and the plant stored material is called starch. Again, important for foundation and meat. In plant, carbohydrate stored in form of starch, and in case of animal, it is stored in form of glycogen. Next, the simple equation of photosynthesis. What it states: 6 molecules of CO2 and 12 molecules of H2O. 6 CO2 plus 12 H2O in presence of sunlight and chlorophyll gives 1 molecule of glucose, that is C6H12O6, releases 6 molecules of O2 and regenerates 6 molecules of H2O. So this is the simple equation of photosynthesis. It states what? 6CO2 plus 12H2O in presence of sunlight and chlorophyll gives C6H12O6 glucose plus 6O2 plus regeneration of 6H2O. So, now looking at the main events occur during the process of photosynthesis. As per your textbook, 3 main events are described. First, simple absorption of light energy by chlorophyll. Chlorophyll is the only chemical which can directly trap the energy of photon rays in the sunlight. One important thing, why we call this process photosynthesis? The word synthesis means to production or to produce something. As we know, the production of glucose takes place at the end of the reaction, but for this energy comes from the sunlight, but particularly energy rich rays of photons present in the sunlight. So, energy of photon rays is absorbed or trapped by the chlorophyll to perform the process of photosynthesis. That's why with the help of photon rays, synthesis of glucose is being done. That's why the name photosynthesis is given. So, first simple event occur during the photosynthesis is absorption of sunlight or light energy by chlorophyll. Again simple, conversion of this light energy into chemical energy. Energy of light from photon rays is trapped by chlorophyll, and the production is, the produced material is glucose. So, light energy is converted into chemical energy in form of glucose molecule, but most importantly, splitting of water molecules. Splitting of water molecules. And third one is again important, reduction of CO2 to carbohydrates. Now, here we have already discussed a lot about 2 main points for foundation and need during classroom program. 2 substrates are here. One is CO2 and another is H2O. Splitting of water molecules, H2O molecule splits into hydrogen and oxygen. Water splits down into hydrogen and oxygen. Another substrate is CO2. Here, we must remember that this 6O2 or oxygen, which is released out in the atmosphere at the end of photosynthesis reaction, it never comes from CO2, but it always comes from H2O. So, this oxygen from H2O will give rise to 6O2, Then what about this hydrogen, which obtained from H2O molecules? So, we want to produce C6H12O6, that is glucose. We want carbon, hydrogen and oxygen. Whereas in CO2, carbon is there, oxygen is there, but no hydrogen is there. This hydrogen obtained from H2O are added into CO2 to form glucose. That's why reduction means addition of hydrogen. Reduction means addition of hydrogen. In which molecule? CO2. Addition of hydrogen. Now it will have carbon, hydrogen and oxygen. They all together form combine to form carbohydrates such as glucose, which is C6 at 12O6. So very important two fundamental points. One, O2 emerges at the end of photosynthesis. It never comes from CO2, but it always comes from H2O, and glucose, which is produced as a main product, it is by the reduction of CO2, and for reduction purpose the hydrogen they again obtained by the H2O. That's why here it is very important that splitting of water molecules takes place during the photosynthesis. So simple, here we end the important process of photosynthesis. Next short note is about stomata. Stomata, they possess stomatal pores. Stomata, they possess stomatal pores which are surrounded by two bean-shaped guard cells, and again for foundation and knit, very important, yes, guard cells, they do possess chloroplast within them. Guard cells, yes, they do possess chloroplast within them. But in short note of stomata, first point we'll write is location. Location of stomata, they are tiny pores present on the surface of leaves. They are tiny pores present on the surface of leaves. Next, we'll go for functions of stomata. Stomata, they have very important role in many physiological processes of plant, but as per your textbook, during two physiological processes, one is photosynthesis and another is transpiration, the role of stomata is massive amount of gaseous exchange takes place during photosynthesis through stomatal pores. So just we have discussed, during photosynthesis CO2 is obtained from atmosphere and O2 released out into the atmosphere, and both these gases are exchanged with environment within cells of leaves is done by these pores of stomata. So first function, during photosynthesis massive amounts of gaseous exchange takes place in the leaves through these pores. Second physiological process, which is known as transpiration. During this process, large amounts of water can be lost through these stomata. The excess amount of water which is absorbed by roots is lost through these stomatal pores, and this process is called transpiration. So simple location is they are tiny pores present on the surface of leaves. Functions, two functions. During photosynthesis, massive amounts of gaseous exchange takes place through these stomatal pores, and during transpiration, large amounts of water can be lost through these pores. Now, last important mechanism of opening and closing of stomata. Very important again for foundation and knit purpose. Opening and closing of stomata is the main function of guard cells. This is the main function of guard cells. Now, let's look at the mechanism of stomatal opening. When water flows into the guard cells, okay, here one important thing is the walls near the pores or surrounds the pores. They are thickened walls, and the walls away from the stomatal pores, they are thin walled. Now what happens? As the water enters or flows into the guard cells, the cells become turgid, they get swelled up, and due to this thin wall, they can stretch enough, they can bear, because they have elasticity or plasticity, but thick walls, they do not possess elasticity, they do not bear such tension. To avoid breakdown of walls due to this tension, they bend inwards, and pore get opened. So when water flows into guard cells, they swell, causing opening of stomata. Now, closing of stomata, exactly reverse process. When guard cells loses water in opening, water flows into guard cells. But during closing of stomata, when guard cells lose water, here they get swelled up, here they will shrink. They get shrink, causing inner walls of guard cells, they get in contact with each other, and slowly stomata will get closed. So simple. When water flows into guard cells, they swell, causing the stomatal pore to open. But when guard cell loses water, they shrink, causing stomatal pore to close. We can easily summarize: if somebody come in, we have to open the door. If someone go out, we'll close the door. So H2 come into guard cells, enters into the guard cells, stomata will open, and H2O goes out, or guard cell loses water, then the stomatal pore is closed. Simple. Now, the process of protein synthesis. For protein synthesis, nitrogen is an essential element. In carbohydrate, there are H and O, means carbon, hydrogen and oxygen. In lipids, they do possess carbon, hydrogen and oxygen. But proteins, they possess carbon, hydrogen, oxygen and nitrogen. And for protein synthesis, nitrogen is an essential element. But how we can get it, or organisms obtain this nitrogen? There are two ways: either inorganic nitrates or nitrites forms, or organic compounds. Inorganic nitrates or nitrites means NO2 minus, NO3 minus. Inorganic nitrates and nitrites, which is taken up by roots from the soil. So plants can easily get these nitrates and nitrites salts from the soil, where some bacteria, they prepare organic compound, nitrogen rich organic compounds prepared by some bacteria from atmospheric nitrogen or N2 gas. From atmospheric nitrogen or N2 gas. Animals obtain nitrogen by consuming preformed organic compounds or proteins present in their food bodies or food material. So it's so simple about protein synthesis. And next topic is heterotrophic nutrition. From here we will study in offline classes, during offline classes in further, but after that you will get such lectures for revision also. And for detailed offline studies, you have to join Neon Academy at Harni, Vadodara, where end-to-end program is there. End-to-end means 9 to NEET biology program is there, means 9 to 12th and NEET, both CBSE, GSEB and as well as English medium and Gujarati medium students can join in offline classes at Neon Academy, Harni, Vadodara. Hope this lecture will help you out. Thank you so much, and keep preparing like a warrior, because victory favors the brave. Thank you. This is all about from HB Sir.